All right, shalom, and welcome to another Bible study, which is a special Bible study this week because we are in the middle of our Feast of Tabernacles. So we are having Ask the Priest, which is we respond to the questions that are presented unto us. In this room, we have a little bucket, a little bowl over there for questions to be placed in, and we have, our family on the internet sending their things to from the website and from the email. So I'm gonna pull that up as well, so I can have that there, so you can send that to the uci.org at Gmail and from the website as well. And we already have quite a few there. So we are going to begin, have a couple of these type questions here, but this makes sense. Hello, Priest Esaac. I have a question, but not sure how to ask. How do we go about dating / being in a relationship? There's a lot of relationship questions. And being in a relationship with someone that doesn't know about this culture, but isn't trying to change my beliefs. That is a very important part. All right. Very, very important. But we also have to think about looking down the road. Are they not trying to change it now, but you have to really go into some things. Then, as most questions, there's about 3 questions inside this question. Is adultery messing with a married man, or you wanting something or someone that's not yours? Is it wrong to catch feelings for a guy that's already married? Just trying to go the right way about this. So there are multiple questions inside of that question. So let's first start with the part about someone that doesn't know this culture but isn't trying to change the beliefs. Let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 6. Because there's some things that we have to consider. When we talk about not changing or not trying to alter the beliefs, not altering the beliefs is a level situation, meaning they may not be attempting to change the beliefs now, but understand how deep and vast the culture is. It's not a thing that you can introduce somebody to the entire culture, on the way to the food court at the mall. And they didn't seem to have no problem with the culture. You explain culture from Macy's to Chick-fil-A. That's as far as y'all conversation is gone. Do you think they now know everything about the culture? We are learning this piece by piece. So what they have a problem with now and what they may have a problem with later is 2 totally different things. And that's something we have to consider. All right? 2 Corinthians chapter 6. And I want to read. Go ahead, brother.
Even on that same token, there's a saying, seeing me and living with me is 2 different things. Right. And then you warn about they're not trying to change your walk in the culture. What happens when there's children that's produced from this relationship?
Most definitely. We getting into that as well. Let's start with verse 14 and verse 15. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, and we're going to read verse 14 and 15.
Be you not unequally yoked together with unbelievers.
Now, when you're talking about yoked, you're talking about tied to. See, when something yoked, it's not getting loose. When something got a yoke around it, it is not getting loose. So when you talk about being yoked to something, you are connected to this thing. Where you go, this thing go. Where this thing go, you go. Now, if you are yoked with an unbeliever, now you have a situation where you two may be going in 2 totally different directions. Now, this is how people lose the 3-legged race when they have field day at school. Because they don't realize when, they got 1 free leg and 1 tied leg. They both trying to run on their own level and strength, not understanding that this one that's tied together, y'all got to move that one together. All right, you got one free leg, one joined leg. That's how you have to deal with relationships. You can only be as fast as the slowness of the other individual. Because if you bring that leg that's tied together too fast, we always watch the fastest people hit the ground during the three-legged race. Fastest people don't win three-legged race. They know how to run by themselves. They don't know how to run with somebody else. And that's the problem that you have in relationships. People know how to run by themselves, and even in getting in a relationship, they still run for themselves. So they're just dragging the other person. The other person is just eating all kind of grass because they're not concerned about how fast that person moves. But the people who learn a system and say, all right, we're going to count the middle leg out. Those are people who win and finish the three-legged race. Because they learn to figure out a system, and everybody has to figure out their own system. You have to learn what works with the individuals who you are yoked with. Figure out how the middle leg is supposed to move. You only have control of the one other leg. This is why relationships fail, because you keep trying to control both legs. You're not concerned with the rhythm of how the leg has to move together. You're going to fail. So this unequally yoked part is very, very big, and it has a tendency to grow as your understanding in the word grows. That's why, I asked the whole thing about how long, have you been having this conversation about the culture. There are things about the culture that, quite frankly, we might have just discovered yesterday. We've been walking 10, 12, 13 years. What happened when that gets introduced? So, go ahead, brother.
For what fellowship has righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion has light with darkness?
Right. So you have this situation where you can't have light and darkness at the same time. They cannot coexist. Darkness is over there, light is over there. They cannot be at the same place at the same time. There's going to be an issue. Go ahead.
And what concord has the Mashiach with Belial? Or what part has he that believes with an infidel?
Right. So then we have to really think about the seriousness of that, and sometimes we call that too quickly because somebody doesn't have a problem with the culture. A lot of times people are not revealing the problems that they may have with the culture until they get to a comfortable spot in the relationship, and then the problems that they have are then revealed. So be very careful about that. I want to go to Leviticus Chapter 20. Because oftentimes when we're dealing with something, we have a tendency to say, if this side is true, then the reciprocal is also true. Mm-hmm. So if you can't go left, then this person can't go left either. And what we do is attribute things the incorrect way. Because the next part of that says, is adultery messing with a married man? First of all, we ain't messing. See, messing is messing. We ain't messing. All right? So we can't be messing. So, but I know what's meant by that, but I need to put that in there. Just so we understand some things. So Leviticus chapter 20, and I want to start that at verse 10.
And the man that commits adultery with another man's wife, even he that commits adultery with his neighbor's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death.
Right. So because these instructions and all of these things were given unto the man, a lot of times what people will do is they will turn around and flip that and say, this is the same thing for the woman. That's not true. See, now you're reading into it your own place and your own thing. See, this is how the adversary was able to say, you will not surely die. Because now we're trying to flip the other side, where if this was said to him, then that must also be for her. And you see how flipping this and making the woman held to the same thing that the man is held to, now you have a problem. And you're going to and if you do that, you're going to have a problem with other laws that he already has. Keep reading.
You know, the broad statement is, you know, the person's not hindering their walk. And like you were saying about us backing into the culture and learning the culture, there's stuff about the culture that's just not thrown out there. Because you might look at it one way, and the same individual who doesn't have a problem now might learn something about the culture, and then you end up having a problem.
Right. And then how they are going to deal with those things, you know? So that's something. Go ahead.
And the man that commits adultery with another, verse 11, sorry. And the man that lies with his father's wife has uncovered his father's nakedness. Both of them shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them.
All right. So now I want to go to Deuteronomy chapter 22. Because we're going to see the same concept. And sometimes we just try and flip that. And I hear, and it's almost, it's human nature to imagine that it must be the same. Even though we know that's not what we read. That's where it's interesting. This is not what we read. But the human nature in you tells you that it must be the same.
Straight across the board.
Right. Surely Yahweh equal all the way across the board, right? All right, Deuteronomy chapter 22 and verse 22.
If a man be found lying with a woman married to an husband, then they shall both of them die. Now,
this has specific information in it. This is not one of those things where he's giving you a roundabout situation. He's giving you exactly all of the things that are contained in this situation and the judgment that pertains to that. Go ahead.
Both the man that lie with the woman and the woman, so shall you put away evil from Israel.
Right. So then even judgment here has been placed upon this thing. So now, understanding that, let's go to Mark chapter 12. I tell you what, before we go there, let's go to Exodus chapter 21. Because this is where, if you take the one part and attribute it all the way across the board, now you have a situation. Because the part of the question says, is adultery messing with a married man? No, adultery is a married man or a man messing with a married woman. That is what adultery is. When we try to take that all the way across and attribute that to every other thing, then now we're stepping outside of the book and we're putting our own feelings into the scenario. Exodus chapter 21, read verse 10.
If he take him another wife, her food, her raiment, and her duty of marriage shall he not diminish.
Now, these are the rules for him if he takes another. Now, stop. The question says, is adultery messing with a married man? So, if he take another. Now, has the other woman now committed adultery because he took another? No, she is not. Is she supposed to not be able to look at this man? Is she committing adultery in her heart? The question is she married? Now she's committing adultery in her heart. Go ahead.
And if he do not these three unto her, then shall she go out free without money.
All right. So now, when we put that together, now I want to go to Mark chapter 12. Because there are things, when you start talking about the culture, now this is one of those things. how much about the culture do you know? Because now we're about to get to something in the culture that everybody not gonna like. Matter of fact, people in the Word don't like this part of the culture. Okay? See, you people in the culture will have issues with this. So let's go Mark chapter 12. Let's start at verse 18.
Then come unto him the Sadducees, which say there is no resurrection. And they asked them, saying.
Now, the question is about resurrection. So they're going to use the question of resurrection because they don't believe in the resurrection. So they're going to use a place in the law where something has to happen, and they're going to say this then makes this law void. So your resurrection cannot possibly be real because the law is going to have a conflict with it. So they are bringing this law, and you have to pay attention in this conversation, not only about what's said, but what is not said. Go ahead.
Master, Moshe wrote unto us, if a man's brother die, and leave his wife behind him, and leave no children, that his brother should take his wife, and raise up seed unto his brother. Now there were 7 brethren, and the first took a wife, and dying left no seed. And the second took her, and died, neither left he any seed, and the third likewise. And the 7 had her, and left no seed. Last of all the woman died also. In the resurrection, therefore, when they shall rise, whose wife shall she be of them? For the 7 had her to wife.
Now, first of all, we have to deal with this culture. This is the very thing that happened with Judah and his sons, where there's a situation where there's a death, and then the wife then marries the next brother in line. We would call this woman all kind of names. This is a part of the culture. That woman marries into that family, and she stays in that family. If her husband dies, then she marries the next available brother in that family. We have a problem. This is how land and everything stays together. See, this is the part that we don't understand about culture. This keeps the family intact, but we will be content letting that go. Now, understand that this law that they're talking about, that law, there's absolutely nothing said about whether or not that person already has a wife. When his brother died, he then has the duty to take on his brother's wife and raise up seed in the name of his brother. The law didn't say, well, unless he already got a wife, then that's okay, then she can die alone. That's not what the book say. So then we have to consider that. So when you start talking about the things about culture, how much about the culture do they know? And then how much do you know? Because their understanding about the culture is based on your understanding about the culture. So maybe they don't have a problem with the culture because they only know the things that you know. So then at some point, as you deepen your knowledge and understanding about the culture, then that gives them more to work with in that pool. Go ahead.
Yeah, just think about even the situation with Dawid when he took, what's his name's wife? What did Yahweh say to him when he sent the prophet to him? Did not give you your master's house and your master's wives?
Right.
Not wife, but wives. And we know that Dawid already had wives.
Before, right. So in that case, then Yahweh would be committing adultery. And Yahweh the one that gave him to him. Go ahead.
And Yahshua answering said unto them, do you not therefore err, because you know not the scriptures?
No, not now. These are the people that when you deal with the scribes and the Sadducees and Pharisees, these are people who study the law. Yahshua coming right at them and said, you don't even know the scriptures. This is what you do. You claim you study the law, you don't even know what it say. Go ahead.
Neither the power of Elohim. For when they shall rise from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels which are in heaven.
Now, I've heard some of the strangest doctrine. Now, I have heard that some are teaching that because this statement was said that they neither marry nor are given in marriage, because their fleshly mind could only imagine that a woman and man can only be attracted to one another, they then came up with the teaching that all women are going to be transformed into men upon resurrection. I have never heard anything. I'm so glad y'all will let me out of that place. But this is the teaching that was being taught. You can't find that. This is when people use their thought to make up the next doctrine. You're not going to find that written anywhere. But what happens is there's a limitation right there. Not in the scripture, but a limitation in their mind. They can't imagine a man being next to the woman and them not having the desire to be with one another. Why is that so difficult? They didn't have that desire in the garden. Why is that difficult? See, this is when we take our limitations, our fleshly limitations, and we put them on everybody else in front of us. Don't put your fleshly limitations on somebody else. And that's what you find individuals doing. And sometimes human nature will push you there and you got to stop yourself. You have to stop yourself and back up and say, wait a minute, what does it say? Does it say that? Do I say that? Who says that? So that's something that we have to consider. Go ahead, bro.
You know, you guys used to have a show called As It Is Written. Uh-huh. And that kind of is what formulated my mind to realizing, read it as it's written.
Right.
Stop putting your own thought process in it and your own feelings. Read it as it is written.
Right, right. Now that goes with another question that we got put in. What should a sister do if she's being pursued by someone she isn't interested in? Not sure it says in the truth. I don't know if the person is not in the truth, but whenever you are pursued by anybody you're not interested in, it would be wise to hurry up and nip that in the bud. Mm-hmm. You know, we live in some different kind of times where stalking has gone digital. You can stalk somebody and not. It used to be when somebody was stalking you, they would be hiding behind the trees and following you. You can stalk somebody from the privacy of your own home. They ain't got to leave the house to stalk you. It would be wise to nip situations like that in the bud so that, you know, things do not get out of hand. And we can't worry about hurting somebody's feelings when there's a situation of what someone wants out of their life or what they want for a future. You have to also look at, too, what kind of signs may you be throwing that may make the individual believe that you are interested. See, there's certain things that we don't really consider. Like, we may not like, you know, certain terms, you know, that are said, but we don't really understand how we feed into them. Like if somebody says the word sexy, we don't understand how we feed into that. I don't know how many people understand what the purpose of makeup is. Now I want to hear somebody who knows what the purpose of it. You say high flaws. You say something else. What you say?
To deceive.
To deceive. All right. Somebody else. What is the intention, the purpose of makeup?
To draw attention.
Allure.
Draw attention, allure. Okay. What else I got?
Where the sister there? I just hear all the brothers.
Exactly. I ain't heard a sister yet.
More attractive?
Okay, make it look. I finally got a sister to talk. Make a sister look more attractive. Okay. What else we got? Cause I know all the brothers talking out there. I ain't never seen them with no makeup on. You ever seen any of these brothers with makeup on? You know what I'm saying? Cause they wasn't gonna come in here with it. But hey.
Some people use them for self-confidence.
Some people use it for self-confidence. Okay. All right. So now we got the sisters and the brothers. Let me tell you what the main purpose of makeup. When we talk about the term sexy, my elder said the first job I had when he gave me the media department, he said, get that makeup off them sisters on that show. Now, the most provocative lipstick is what color?
Red.
Now, everybody know that, right? What do you think happens to a lighter skinned individual? Understand, these are white people things that they gave to us. What happens when blood rushes to the lip of a white person who's ready to be aroused or sexually active? Turn red. Okay, as their face then changes, as blood rushes to it because they are ready to become active, what happens to their cheeks?
Flush red.
Oh, so when you put on makeup, what you telling everybody is you're ready to have sex. Okay. Right. Now, then you got to ask yourself, so what have you done to feed this situation? Uh-oh. See, I got brothers keep looking at me and I ain't really interested in him. Wait, whoa, 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 whoa. What kind of signals have you put out there to that brother? Oh, okay. Now, you got, or we supposed to be wearing undergarments. Have you showed up in a place without undergarments and now the brother think, well, hey, hold on now. Man, I saw a little bit more, it was stuff moving. How many signals have you put out there? Gets interesting when you understand the purpose of something, don't it? See, darker skinned people, we don't change color like that. But when you understand the individuals who put this stuff together and understand what they are mimicking, then it makes sense. We're not going to change colors like that, but other people do. Go ahead.
You know, you were talking about earlier about nipping it in the bud because you don't know what kind of signals, not even the signals, the sickness of the individual.
Uh-huh.
Because you ever heard the show Nopi Nationals? There's a big car show they used to keep.
Oh, yeah.
I was recently told of one of the reasons why Nopi Nationals was moved from the Atlanta Motor Speedway. The last time it was held there, a young lady left to go to the restroom. One of the vendors took an attraction to her. And that was the last time she was seen alive.
Wow.
Just a day of going out to a car show. Some sick individual. So it's like you're saying, nah, you need to put a stop to it right away. I don't think so. Y'all need to, no, get the hell out of my face. No, I don't like you.
You know, it's one of those things. Things can really go sour real quick. Now, the next thing I want to read on that, because we had a couple of questions within that question, but then there were some other things that were presented. So I'm trying to cover a couple of those questions while I'm on that topic. So I want to make sure I got all of that. So let's go to Luke chapter 16. Now, this right here is the boat rocker. Because the question was asked, is adultery messing with a married man? I told you I don't like the term messing.
Mm-hmm. It's messing with your mind?
It's messing. It's messing with me. Messing is messing with me. We're not messing. All right? As my elder used to say, you either married or you're fornicating. All right? So we're not messing. All right? Is adultery messing with a married man? Now, read Luke chapter 16 and verse 18. I don't think people really want to know what adultery is.
Whosoever puts away his wife and marries another commits adultery.
Stop, man. Hold on, man. Everybody we know done that. This is exactly what most people do. So when you talk about adultery, most people are already committing adultery. Because that's what we think we're supposed to do. If you're going to marry another, then you got to divorce the one that you got so you can get another one. Yahweh said, no. You entered into that covenant, you're going to keep that one. Oh, you entered into this other one, you're going to keep that one too. So the very ones who we think are in quote unquote good relationships according to, now this is New Testament. Now had this been in the Old Testament, everybody would have been like just completely going again. Oh, that brother going into all this old stuff. Not only is this New Testament, but this is written in red. This is Yahshua talking. This is what most people do. Whosoever puts away his wife and marries another commits adultery. Check that out. Nowadays, you can get a divorce without the other person even being there. So when we get down to, we have to separate things based on our understanding versus the scriptural understanding. And when you get close to the scriptural understanding, you're going to have to throw yours away. You will not be judged according to your understanding of the law. You're going to be judged by his understanding and his intention of the law. As we've always been told, ignorance of the law is no excuse. I cannot go to a court of law and they say, you did such and such. Well, Your Honor, I didn't know that was against the law. It's not our problem. I'm sorry you didn't know that fishing without a license was against the law. Nonetheless, here's your ticket. Maybe you should read up on the laws, but it is against the law. You don't get to use ignorance of the law as your justification for breaking the law. So that's something that you have to understand. But see, this goes deeper than that. That's just the first part. All right. This is how I say most people are already in an adulterous relationship while looking down at somebody else's relationship. You know, so that's the first part. Whosoever put away his wife and marries another commits adultery. Read the next part.
And whosoever marries her that is put away from her husband commits adultery.
Man, come on, bro. Come on, man. So when we talk about understanding the culture, most people who we've met, who we come in contact with, are already in an adulterous relationship. Because instead of trying to maintain the previous covenant, they do away with that covenant to enter into another covenant. Now, we know that there are situations and circumstances that none of us can control. You can't make anybody walk right. You can't make anybody be right. There are certain situations that you're going to have to get as far away from that as you possibly can. That's just is what it is. But we have to also look at, will Yahweh look at your situation the same way that you have? This is why I tell people, when you're in a situation, you have to do everything that you can to maintain your covenant. When it gets to that point that it becomes a threat of you saving your life, it's time for you to abandon that. It's better to be able to ask forgiveness because you're still alive and breathing than to stay in a situation that is unhealthy for your life. You don't maintain a covenant to death and stay there and let the person that you entered in the covenant with kill you. So you can say, well, I ruled it out. Like I said, till death do us part. Well, I'm dead now. No. We're not going to do that. See, I'm going to tell this story while I'm living. I'm out. Okay? So please don't get that twisted. Go ahead, bro.
I was just going to say, I'm sitting here thinking about the questions that are common to us are not questions that you would hear being asked in the Middle East countries.
Right.
But yet we think we're so above and advanced as far as culture. These are not normal questions for those people.
Well, we believe that us being in control is the best thing. So like, in a lot of Middle Eastern countries, they have arranged marriages. Mm-hmm. So you have adults who are looking at children, and they can look at those people and see the manner of spirit that they have. Children have not learned to recognize spirits in people. They just know, this is my friend. Oh, he's cute. Oh, she's cute. Oh, this is all they know. Parents, people who have grown up, have watched certain things, okay? we then believe that, I know best. I know what's best for me. My mama don't know what's best for me. My dad don't know what's best for me. Then, so we make the decisions. There are more divorces in the West than all the other places in the world combined. Yet we are making the decision on who we're going to marry. Yet those marriages are ending horribly. But we are making the decisions. That should tell you something. What are we making those decisions based upon? Is it based upon how we feel right now at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday? Or are we looking further down the line? Go ahead.
When it comes to culture, I think we're so busy idolizing what we think culture is, especially those that got caught on to this Egyptology thing. And we don't spend time to actually ask people who are from the East and the Middle East some questions about their culture, the things they go through. It's just like if you talk to most of the women who are named Patel, Indians, you're going to find out that was already their name before they even got married. Mm-hmm. And that's the same thing that's written in Scripture. You're supposed to stay within your tribe. We know we've gone helter-skelter and we've been punished, but we can see that whole concept still holds true to those people who are from a place that they know culture.
Mm-hmm. It definitely makes a difference. Even when you go into this book, you had the parents saying, please don't pick one of these women over here for my son as a wife. Go to your mother's people and pick a wife from one of those women. Do not get one of the. So there was already a situation of their culture is different, and you have the patriarchs and the matriarchs saying it repenteth me if they pick one of these women over here. What, you think none of them look good? It wasn't about how they looked. It was about what type of individual they were based upon the culture that was being observed. And normally we make decisions based on proximity. So if we are in near proximity to something, we tend to pick the people whom we are close to. So when we decide that we're going to live in certain neighborhoods because the houses are nice, you need to also understand you have just put your children in close proximity to whatever is in that neighborhood. So if they in turn start dating, they're going to start dating from the proximity of where they are. Now, if nobody else is like them where they are, then you basically push that onto them. They didn't make that decision. You made that decision for them. Understand that. And I need to also mention that, because there's a part in 1 Corinthians 7 where it says, let every man have his own wife, let every woman have her own husband. And what we don't understand is each one of those covenants is independent between that man and that woman. And we have to understand that 1 Corinthians 7 does not override the law that Yahweh already put. Law stands firm. And even Yahshua says that one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law until all is fulfilled. And to the point that Priest Kish made earlier, that Yahweh told Dawid, did not I give you your master's house and your master's wives? That was not adultery. All right. But then when Dawid went after Uriah's wife, he was then guilty of adultery and Yahweh punished him accordingly. So he had these other wives, multiple wives, was not punished. Matter of fact, Yahweh gave him 10 at the same time. Not punished. When he went after one that did not belong to him, he was then punished and thoroughly punished for that action. So that's something that we have to consider. So that was a couple of things. I'm kind of marking some of these off. Matter of fact, I need a pen because I'm getting some of these inside of another one. All right, I got one. Thank you. So I can mark off what we got here. All right. Excuse me. Next question. Found your congregation on YouTube as I have been searching for a ministry that believes what I believe as a Hebrew black man. I have a quick question about interracial relationships. I have been with my girlfriend for 2 years now. Her father is Bolivian and her mother is Chinese. And she has been taking on our Hebrew culture. But once again, culture comes in levels. All right? As I have been beginning to transition from Christianity and other ministries that weren't on the same page as me regarding the scriptures, I have been working on leading us into a lifestyle that the Almighty Yahweh designed and commanded for us to live as Hebrews. I haven't been following your congregation for long, so I'm not sure where you all stand with my situation. I would like some clarity and ask you that if we were to come visit your congregation in the future for Sabbaths, feast days, baptism, or marriage, would we be accepted as a couple as long as she abides with me? Now, let me stop right there. Sabbath, feast days, and baptisms, we can join together. We will never join together in your marriage. All right. Now, because it's important that I explain that. Okay. As it is written, you could invite us to your marriage feast. We will never be invited to your marriage. Most people don't really understand what marriage is. This is when Yahshua asked the woman, he said, where's your husband? She says, I don't have a husband. He said, you've had 5 husbands and the one that you have now is not your own, and that you've said truly. So how did she have 5 husbands, but she didn't know that she had 1 husband? Because he was counting the number of people that she had slept with. Okay, get right down, or let's go back down to the beginning of the book when Esaac took Rebekah into his mother's tent. There's no wedding, there's no ceremony. It says he took Rebekah into his mother's tent and she became his wife. I don't have to explain to you what happened in the tent. Okay, so marriage is one thing, a marriage feast is something else. All right, but I need to explain that. That's part of the culture. So when you understand things of the culture, you learn bits and pieces about the culture. It's an ongoing process. So believing that you can meet somebody and you're talking to them and they don't have a problem with the culture. They don't have a problem with the culture that they know right now. But what happens, and like my brother said, it may become a situation that they're actually more, as you learn something about the culture and it actually fits their culture better than it fits how you grew up. What you gonna do then? They were actually better with that part than you. So this is how I tell people, be careful with I don't have any issues in the culture, because the culture grows. Okay, I remember sitting in a class in the beginning of my walk, and nobody had to tell me about pork. I knew it. I knew pork was wrong. I grew up, I had pork chops in the morning. All right, I had pork chop sandwiches. Okay, so I knew that was wrong. I'm in the middle of a class and one guy is teaching and he goes across and he's mentioning pork. And I'm like, I got that. I know that. Then he says something about shrimp and crab legs and they had to resuscitate me. I was like, I said, what? They said, what? Oh, you didn't know we couldn't eat that? Oh, I needed one of those machines. Clear. What? That was my thing. That's how you know I got paid. Because, I came home with the crab legs. You go ahead and get them steamed, put the little stuff on them. I'm eating the roaches out to sea, but I don't know that yet. Okay? I got, and if it was a good check, I got the lobster too. All right, I done got them steamed. I had them put that Old Bay on there. You know what I'm saying? And I got me a bottle of wine. 2 if it was a real festive night. So I'm leaving with 2 bottles and some crab legs and lobster. Brother ended up reading and said, I was in such disbelief and awe. He had to just stop the class and go back and read it for me, so that I wouldn't think that it was him just saying it. I drove home very slowly that day. I was gung-ho about the culture when it was just pork. Or when I thought it was just pork. When I found out that included lobster and crab leg, I took some turns going to the house that I didn't need to take. I just ran, just go around the block again. What are you? I'm having to process this because this thing is deep in me. But nonetheless, what does the word say? I had to back away from it. But that was harder than it was with the pork. All right, because I actually liked the other stuff. I mean, I liked the pork when I was eating it, but I understood, even when you eat pork, everybody knows, without any so-called organized religion, without any of that, somebody in your family done got that speech.
Don't you let granddaddy eat no bacon or sausage. He's gonna die in here.
Everybody done got that sooner or later one of your old relatives have either high blood pressure or something and they can't touch it. So you find them sneaking and you find out, Big Daddy, why are you in my room eating bacon? Shut up, boy. What are you doing? Because he running from Big Mama. He got to go somewhere else and eat that because it has poisoned him for so long. Now he's at a point where it's doing damage to his body and it's not fixable. So that's something that you have to deal with. I didn't run into anybody who had problems with shrimp and crab legs. So, I hadn't read any law. So that thing we have to deal with in levels. Go ahead, bro.
The brother said him and his girlfriend.
Yep.
And then he said his marriage. There's a lot of people that's married and don't think they married or understand what marriage is.
Right. This is also, though, why a baptism is important. Because how many people was she married to before she married you? So when Yahweh sees you and her, will he say that that's your wife? Or will he say that that's somebody else's wife? Because they got married before y'all got married. How much of the culture do you know? And understand, there's always a situation where we can walk to a point and Yahweh sees that we are repentive about our previous actions. So it's not like we're bound to every mistake that we've made. We've all made mistakes because we've all done some things. But at what point, even the woman that was caught in the act of adultery, he never said she didn't do it. He said, go and sin no more. So as long as she didn't go back into that life, she was forgiven for the adultery that she had committed. But if she committed it again, not only is she judged for that adultery, but she judged for the other one too. What they tell you when you get on probation? All right, we letting this slide. But if you do it again, you don't just get judged for that one. You get judged for the one that you got put on probation for too. You got 2 charges. And in here, that give you a life sentence. Or death sentence, however you want to look at it. Go ahead.
I know you just beat the brother up, but I want to commend.
I am not beating this brother up.
Well, I did, with the marriage thing.
You know what I'm saying?
I want to commend the brother for the fact that he says he got her walking in the culture as much as he knows so far.
Right.
Because we will actually take on somebody else's culture because it seems far away.
Exactly, and I was gonna get there when you talk about that culture situation. But we're gonna get there in the reading. Let me go to the rest of this. What was that? So, okay. It says, would we be accepted as a couple as long as she abides with me, strives to obey Yahweh with me, and lives as a Hebrew woman should? Thank you for all that you do as a congregation. May Yahweh bless you going forth. Any help clarifying this for me is greatly appreciated. All right. Thank you for the question. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 24. I don't know why you say I'm beating up on them.
No, I beat up on them.
Well, don't say us. Say you. You know what I'm saying? Don't put me in that.
They expect that from me.
You know what I'm saying? Don't put me in that. So Leviticus chapter 24, and I'll start at verse 10.
And the son of an Israelitish woman whose father was an Egyptian.
All right, so then you have a mixed marriage here. All right? Mother is an Israelite, father is an Egyptian. 2 totally different cultures. All right? At some point, there's going to be a mixing of these cultures. What we have to understand is all things don't mix evenly. See, I hesitated on mentioning some things because some people take some things and it may hurt their feelings. And I have a tendency to say there's certain things that are mixed and then certain things are mixed up. Because certain things don't always mix together right. Like when we are talking about a mixed child, we have to examine what's happening. You have straight hair mixed with curly hair, and then eventually that makes a certain kind of hair. We are aware of that physically because we're able to see it. All right? There are thought processes and types that are mixing as well. All of those don't tend to mix well. Sometimes you may get all of one thing, or what happens when half concepts mix together. If you go down into where Jacob is giving the blessings to all of the kids, he's telling you the characteristics of each one of those kids. Now, we read earlier that tribes were supposed to stay together. There are certain attributes of each tribe. Now, what happened when those tribes start intermarrying? Now you're intermarrying concepts of the individual. That's still within the same ethnic group. Now imagine when you mix outside of ethnic groups, you are now mixing totally different, which with each person there's a gene pool. And I need to emphasize the word pool. It's not like me and a woman has a child and it's two genes mixing together. No, there's two pools. And when I say pools, understand, that means from my pool, that child could grab something from 8 generations back. From her pool, the kid could grab something from 8, 10, 12 generations back. There are two pools. Now imagine that those pools come from a different ethnic group. Now there's a different pool from a different continent. Now those things are mixing. We can clearly see what happens when straight hair goes with curly or kinky hair. We see what that turns into. Well, what happens with the thought processes? When you think about how certain people act and what may be typical of that type of person from that area, when you mix that with the type of another individual, what does that make? You have to be ready for that. But it's difficult to be ready when you're not aware. Okay? It's very difficult to be ready when you're not aware of all of those things. So that's something that you just have to understand that's taking place. Now, I'm not telling people I'm for or against anything. You just need to know what that is. Because we have a tendency to look at things and we look at it on the outward part. Like people will say, I want my kid to have bow legs. Bow legs is a birth defect. Mm-hmm. You want your kid to have a birth defect? Because we deem that is a cool, acceptable thing. A lot of those people later on in life, they have problems when they try to walk. It doesn't bother them when they're young, but we think that's pretty. So then we want certain things. You have to understand how those things are going to work. And the more things you put in that pool, you have the more situations of what's going to attach together. So I just need to put that out there. Like I said, not saying for or against. You just need to know that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and that also goes to the first question about the person who's not in the walk too, because what happens when your child pulls the heathen tendencies
there you go
out of that other pool?
There you go. And you got a drunk uncle who does this crazy thing. And then one day you see your kid who has never been around your drunk uncle and he does that thing. You know to jump right on it. You know, that's your clue. Go take care of that thing. You see that thing you saw Uncle Bobo do? I just see your kid did. Your kid ain't never met Uncle Bobo. Matter of fact, we keep all the kids away from Uncle Bobo. Because we know he not right. But I just saw your boy do it. He's never met him. So what does that mean? It's in him. Go deal with that. Go deal with it now. So now you have the opportunity to see if you can pull that out. But what if you ain't never met Uncle Bobo? You don't know what you're looking at. You didn't know. You don't know it until it turns into that thing. You know, when he make the news. Now you know, wait a minute. You mean you had a relative who used to do this? Now the conversation comes up. So, I understand that. And we all got that regardless of who we're with. Because, like I said, they're pools. Okay? There's some people in my family I would not leave around my children for 0.2 seconds. If I got to go to the bathroom, I'll make my kids come and stand outside the bathroom and just keep knocking. You still there? All right, I'll be out in a minute. I need 2 knocks for the second kid, 3 knocks for the third, 4 knocks for the fourth. Come on. Because I know that that's an imbecile. Okay? But understand, that imbecile is floating around in my gene pool. You understand? You got to be honest with yourself. And that's sometimes the things that we have the hardest time dealing with. The imbecile could come from you. Couldn't come from the other person. You know, we like to look at the other person. And, you know, I play with it all the time, but it's real. You know, I play, but I know the real thing. Every time one of my kids do something, you know, I tell their mom, now see, that's your child right there. When they do something I don't like, I'll say it in a minute. You know what I'm saying? See, that's your side. See, you got that from your mama. You see? Because that right there makes no sense at all. No sense at all. That couldn't have at all come from my loins. You know what I'm saying? Nah, I know that ain't true, but it's fun. But you have to just understand how that works. So then they are striving together. Leviticus 24 and verse 11.
And the Israelitish woman's son blasphemed the name of Yahweh and cursed. And they brought him unto Moshe. And his mother's name was Shelemith, the daughter of Dibriah of the tribe of Dan.
Now, because these two cultures are not mixing, soon as a situation comes, the child picks which culture he's going to elevate. He picks that on his own. As soon as an altercation presented itself. Go ahead.
And they put him in ward, that the mind of Yahweh might be showed them. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, Bring forth him that cursed without the camp, and let all that heard him lay their hands upon his head, and let all the congregation stone him. And you shall speak unto the children of Israel, saying, Whosoever curses Elohim shall bear his sin.
Now, because of the altercation, this is something that we do as individuals. We get angry at people, and then we take it out on Yahweh and what he has going on. This is what people don't really understand. When they were upset with Yahweh, they spoke against Moshe. Yahweh knew exactly who they were really angry with. And that's why he punished them thoroughly. He knew, no, it's not Moshe who you're angry with. You're really angry with me. It's just we're not bold enough to say, Yahweh, I got a problem with you. So we'll take it out on the individual that we see. Because this situation happened and they have a problem with one another, what does he do? He's bold enough to throw the God into it. We do it, but we're just a little bit smoother with it when we do it. Go ahead.
And he that blasphemed the name of Yahweh, he shall surely be put to death. And all the congregation shall certainly stone him, as well the stranger, as he that is born in the land, when he blasphemed the name of Yahweh, shall be put to death.
All right, let's go to Numbers chapter 11. Grab some of this over there. All right, thank you. Numbers chapter 11. And start at verse 1.
And when the people complained, it displeased Yahweh, and Yahweh heard it, and his anger was kindled, and the fire of Yahweh burned among them, and consumed them that were in the uttermost parts of the camp. And the people cried unto Moshe, and when Moshe prayed unto Yahweh, the fire was quenched. And he called the name of the place Tabernacles, because the fire of Yahweh burnt among them. And the mixed multitude that was among them fell a-lusting.
The mixed multitude. So there are other people that are coming out, not just Israel. Now, as the mixed multitude come out, they have different desires and they're accustomed to different things. But then what does it do? Influence Israel. Always has, always will. But then once we get influenced, and this is that thing about deciding which culture is going to guide the house, okay? When you're talking about being in a mixed marital situation. So if we're going to deal with that, we have to deal with, that on a couple of levels, okay? Which culture is going to govern the house? Because you get to a point where Moshe was in a mixed marriage. He had an Egyptian and a Midianite woman. Mm-hmm. When it came time for that circumcision, the angel didn't care what kind of woman he was married to. You're going to get this circumcision or I'm going to kill you. Mm-hmm. It's just, those are the choice. And it gave him a choice. It gave him an opportunity to fix the conversation or the situation with his wife. He wasn't able to fix it. When the angel pressed and this is it, you either gonna get these kids circumcised because you about to enter over here. And I'm telling you what they gonna do. You either get these babies circumcised according to this culture or I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna circumcise you. Then he had to go ahead and go against his wife's wishes to the point where she said, you are a bloody husband unto me because of this circumcision. She didn't like it. Didn't matter with Moshe. This has to be done. Now, when it comes down to that point, where are you going to stand? Because your Elohim is going to hold you accountable. Is it okay as long as she agrees with certain parts of the culture? What about when she does not? Moshe's wife did not agree with circumcision. She did not agree with it at all. And then was talking back. She doing it and talking. See, that's that part that we don't see when that mouth keep running. She's showing all her indignation. Just can't stop. The mouth just running. She is showing all her indignation by what's flowing out of her mouth. What are you going to do? Are you going to make some concessions because this upsets your wife? Or are you going to worry about what upsets your Elohim? Everybody may have that situation, whether they're married to another person of another culture or not. You can have that married to somebody who looks just like you. So that question goes to everybody, not just the individual who's considering a mixed marriage. That goes to everybody. Because we are raised up in a certain culture. What happened when you find out that doesn't fit what's in here? Go ahead, brother.
Even when you want to look at that perfect example of a stranger grabbing hold to Israel's culture, you go to Ruth. Because she had an opportunity, she could have walked away from the culture. But she stuck with this culture and said, your people going to be my people.
Exactly.
Your L is going to be my L. Right. Your guy is going to be my guy.
And we're going to get to that. We are going to get to that. So, verse 4, the mixed multitude fell a-lusting. And
the last part of it?
Yeah, read the last part.
And the children of Israel also wept again and said, who shall give us flesh to eat?
Right. So then that mixed multitude, they were mixed. And all of those different thought processes produced something else. See, we always look at the physical part of something. Now, we have to go into certain parts, which some people do not like. So let's go to Nehemiah chapter 13. Because I want to read something out of there. But if you're going to get a view of it, you need to get a view of all of it. Let's see. We're going to do 13 and start that at verse 23.
In those days also saw I Yehudis that had married wives of Ashdod, of Ammon, and of Moab.
Now, pay attention to those names because it's going to be interesting later. All right? Ashdod, Ammon, and Moab. All right? Now, Israel is upset about this. Go ahead.
And their children spake half in the speech of Ashdod, and could not speak in the Yehudis' language, but according to the language of each people.
Now, as our people, would get punished and have to go into other lands, we are now in close proximity to other people. What did I say earlier? We pick mates based upon the proximity of where we are. So consider that when you move or wherever it is you stay, what you are putting upon those children, what you're putting them in proximity to. So now, because of captivity, they are in close proximity to other people. Go ahead.
When you look at it, these are Hebrew men, Israelite men,
right?
Married to these women of these other cultures. But then their children speak Ashdod.
Right.
Do they speak Ashdod?
Interesting.
And I'm
so then whose culture is reigning supreme in the house?
And I'm bringing that up from my own personal household and relatives. Because my niece, being half Japanese and my brother being Negro, I've seen situations where she wants something as a kid and he said, no, you can't have it. She looked dead at him, turned around, walked over to her mother and changed the language she's speaking in. And go ask her mother in Japanese. And I guess if he didn't understand enough, he'd have been out. Because he was able to say, didn't I say no? But if you don't understand the other person's culture, do you really know what's going on inside your house right in front of your face?
That's an interesting thing, man.
You can have an idol in your house and don't even know what it is.
Do your kids speak patois?
They want to.
Yeah.
They're trying to. They're talking with their grandmother. Yeah, they feel I let them down, but it's all right.
Hey, I just want to know, because I know you get excited. I don't gonna know what the hell you talking about. Hey, what you be like, it's time me to go. I don't know what the hell he talking about. And he'll just switch up in a minute, Let two Jamaicans get to talking, I walk out the room. Ain't no need of me being in here, because this is about to get interesting. Let's go to Ruth, which is what you were talking about earlier. This woman, foreign woman, but she made a decision. And the interesting thing about Ruth was she made the decision before having a husband. See, a lot of people get in this word because there's something in it. And I often wonder, there are people who come in the word looking for something. And could it be that they're looking for the wrong reasons, or that they're not going to be obedient? Because it seems that it doesn't happen for them. And you have to look at this. She didn't make this decision because she had a man who was a Hebrew. That's $1 million thought process that you got to consider. A lot of people are like, yeah, I change as long as, everything's going good. Go ahead.
Well, with Ruth, we want to remember that her first husband was already in the
culture. But he did.
Right, but so...
She free.
It also lets you know that...
Free.
She understood.
I'm talking free 99.
She understood something about the culture that she decided, no, I still want to stay in this culture.
Right? But she free 99, bro.
And that's what I was saying.
It says a woman is bound to her husband as long as he lives. Her husband dead. She free 99.
And let's go see what the sister wife did. We can go ahead and do it.
Hey, let's go now, because that story get long. Let's go to Ruth chapter 4, and we're gonna start that at verse 1.
Well, we know the sister wife got the hell on.
The other sister did. She said, hey, I'm free. I don't have to follow Hebrew life or thought process or anything. But then here's the question. Was any of that being presented to her anyway? So as we deal with that, so we're going to deal with this situation here. Ruth 4, and let's start at that verse 1.
Then went Boaz up to the gate and sat him down there. And behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spake came by, unto whom he said, Ho, such a one, turn aside, sit down here. And he turned aside and sat down. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, Sit you down here. And they sat down. And he said unto the kinsman, Naomi, that is come again out of the country of Moab, sells a parcel of land which was our brother Elimelech's.
Our brother. Now remember the thing that Yahshua read when it was talking about the Sadducees says it was said in the law. If a man died, the brother must marry the sister, the woman, and raise up seed unto his brother. Now remember this law, all right? Yahshua was talking about this law in the New Testament. Here's that law in effect in the Old Testament. Go ahead.
And I thought to advertise you, saying, buy it before the inhabitants and before the elders of my people.
Now, this is slick brother, because he talking about the land, but he don't want the land. You know what I'm saying? He don't want the land. Go ahead.
If you will redeem it, redeem it. But if you will not redeem it, then tell me that I may know. For there is none to redeem it beside you, and I'm after you.
All right, so he understands, according to lineage, I'm after you. So you have more right to get this woman than I do. You understand? Now it's going. Remember the question, 7 brothers, they all had her. One died, one after another. Yahshua is given this situation. This is New Testament that was presented. We see that then this Old Testament thought process is still there in the New Testament, all right? And they are operating by it, even used that law to deal with a question they had about resurrection. That's how important this law and this culture was to Israel. So, keep going.
And he said, I'll redeem it.
All right, I'll redeem it. I'll buy the land. I got some money. Now, let's see how interesting it gets. Go ahead.
Then said Boaz, what day you buy the field of the hand of Naomi, you must buy it also of Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance.
Now, he could have said that to start with. You know what I'm saying? He could, but he drew him in only to drop him back off. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I buy it. All right. But you got to also raise up seed. Now, this lets you know the culture of Israel, because he knows that this is about to change everything that he has set up already. Read.
And the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar mine own inheritance.
Stop. Once he get another kid, the inheritance has to change. Because you can't leave no kid without anything. He has already made promises for inheritance. But he drew him in with the land. Oh, yeah, I most definitely buy the land. All right, wait, you got to get this woman and have a kid, too. You know what? You know what, brother, I'm fresh out. I'm not going to be able to do that. Good. Because that's what I wanted in the first place. Go ahead.
You know, that also now opens up the duty of the first wife. Because we don't look at these children of this first wife too. You can't change nothing over there. So that's where he said, nah, bro, I already got stuff situated and set out. Nah, man, this is going to have to change everything.
In other words, he going to have to work some more. So you can't just take stuff from them to get to him. No, that means you got to figure something out. Maybe you got to, deal with your finances differently. You might have to have a liquidation sale. Go ahead.
Redeem you my right to yourself, for I cannot redeem it. Now this was the manner in former time in Israel concerning redeeming and concerning changing. For to confirm all things, a man plucked off his shoe and gave it to his neighbor. And this was a testimony in Israel. Therefore the kinsman said unto Boaz, buy it for you. So he drew off his shoe. And Boaz said unto the elders and unto all the people, you are witnesses this day that I bought all that was Elimelech's and all that was Kilion's and Mahlon's of the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess.
I'm sorry. She's what?
Moabite.
Okay, now if we go back to Nehemiah, what was the strange flesh that they got thrown out?
Ashdod, Ammon, and Moab.
Okay, Moab. Oh, these was the ones that they were throwing out of the land because they had kids that were speaking Ashdod. They had married the Moabites. They done threw, in some cases, they sent out the kids and everything. Wait a minute. Now we having a situation, this woman is a Moabite. Wait a minute, this is the same kind that was thrown away before? Okay, keep reading.
But this same kind end up in the lineage
of King David, and thus Yahshua.
All right.
So then we have to make some distinction then. So if we just draw any line all the way across the board, you're going to have a problem. So consider that. There's a reason why I wanted you to pay attention to, okay, which were these people? And Moabites was one of them. This is a Moabitess. Go ahead.
The wife of Mahalan have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, that the name of the dead be not cut off from among his brethren, and from the gate of his place. You are witnesses this day.
All right. So, and like Priest Kish said, this then becomes where Dawid is descended from. So that means you have this Moabitess even in the lineage of this our king, and then of course Yahshua, who was called the son of Dawid, because the seed of that tribal house was used to bring forth the body of Yahshua. And there was also, I kind of put these in order to try to keep from going back and forth. One of the questions said, why is the Messiah referred to as the Son of Man? We know that the angels were referred to as sons of Elohim, and men who walk in the Spirit thus receive the adoption of sons and can then be referred to as sons of Elohim. When you talk about Yahshua, the seed of a man was used to bring forth the body that the Spirit of Israel dwelt in. That's the Son of Man. That was a seed used to bring forth this body. And it took a while to build generation after generation so that a king could be presented. You got to think about what has to happen. From the minute this situation, and there's another question here that I can get right there. When you deal with what happened in the garden, the minute this sin is committed, a plan has to go in effect. All right? You understand how many generations it takes for this plan to go in effect? All right, there has to be atonement made for their sin. But when you understand the power that Adam was made in, Adam just means man. So the question was said in Genesis 5 and verse 2, male and female created he them and blessed them and called their name Adam, called them man. They were mankind. We oftentimes deal with Adam as a specific name of an individual. This is man. Okay? This is what we're dealing with. All right? So then when you also are dealing with, it says, who is there, who is being referenced, you're talking about mankind at this point. And Yahweh is dealing with that on a inclusive level of man in general. Because it's like my kids, I mean, they got names, but sometimes I just, boy, little girl, go over there and get me that remote. Little boy, get that from the little girl and bring it over here. You know what, little boy? Go over there and get me a cup, put some ice in it. I mean, I know they got names. I mean, I'm not calling it. I mean, when I want to. I mean, I made the name. I call it when I want to. And when I don't want to, I don't call it. They need to know. They're 30 years old. Little boy. You're still my little boy. Mm-hmm. You understand? My grandmama called me a name that has never, ever been my name. And you know what the most I can say? Yeah, ma'am. My entire life she called me. I had 3 grandmamas. All 3 of them called me a different name. And none of those names were mine. They decided what they were going to call me. And wasn't a damn thing I could say about it. I asked the question, I mean, not to my grandmama, but I asked my mama, why your mama don't call me my name? She told me. She said, oh, she used to keep a little boy. Because, sharecropping and all of that. She ended up raising people's kids. And she kept one of the little boys. And that was the little boy name. And she got used to calling that little boy name. And it was close enough to what I named you. So that became your name. I said, well, at least I got an understanding why she called me the wrong name my entire life. I don't think my grandma, my mama's mama, I don't think she's ever called me my name, ever. I don't think she ever knew it. I mean, she must have decided when I was a toddler, because I never heard her say it. So, we kind of get caught up in that part. Go ahead.
Even with that whole thing of man, with the question of man, even when woman was produced, Adam was the one that said she shall be called woman. He didn't say that's her name. Later on, she gets a name.
Right.
Because she was taken from man.
Right.
You still see man in
Therein lies the difference between the title and the actual name. Okay? So a lot of times we get caught up in the semantics of things. I also wanted to, before we leave that concept, I wanted to read just this one line in 1 Corinthians 7. It says in verse 27, are you bound unto a wife? Seek not to be loosed. Are you loosed from a wife? Seek not a wife. So if Yahweh has called you or you are getting the understanding of the word and this is who you're with, then you have to walk accordingly. A lot of times people come in and they're in a mixed marriage, and then, they tell us, I'm going to tell them to leave the other individual. No, you walk and you let Yahweh choose and decide. Trust me, if he makes that situation to where it totally crumbles, you're going to know that. But none of us can tell you that before any of that happens. So you have to walk one day at a time. And no matter how you come in here, whether it's white, black, or anything, if you decide to abide by this culture, we're going to teach you. If you go against the culture, don't think I'm not going to show you favoritism, good or bad. Meaning that when they step out of line, they're going to get it just like everybody else in here get it. Now, don't think...
Well, Esaac, you didn't have to say that because my wife's Spanish. You know what I'm saying? And then you went in
on her. Didn't I go in on everybody else? When they step, all right. So don't expect, no half step, left or right. You gonna get the same. Like my grandma's, my mom used to say, you get it where you act up at. If you act up in Kroger on aisle 3, Kroger on aisle 3 is where you get it. You're not going to get it later. You're going to get it at aisle 3. That way you acted up at, that's where you're going to get it at. So not only will there not be preferential treatment, there won't be preferential hate or preferential love. What did that law say? Whether they be born among you or whether they be strangers. One law. Understand what one law means. Because there may be some times where a situation comes and you want me to be lenient because of that individual ethnicity. And I'm not going to do it. I'm going to give them the same thing that everybody else got. Because there's one law. And if you can deal with that, we're going to love the same way. But we're going to also give a whooping the same way. All right? As long as you're cool with that, see you when you show up. All right. Let's go to the next one. We got 2 weeks ago I emailed a question about the rapture that I may have sent in haste, as I had a question but then I really know how to pose it. I sent a question because I really truly don't know what the rapture is, other than what I was told some time ago. I asked because I keep seeing everywhere in places where I would not think. I am not one who has itching ears to hear everyone speak, as I do not have the attention span nor patience to hear nonsense. But I decided to ask, as I have 2 girls who I know will ask me what it is and how to combat Christians' intent on converting them. Here's what I was told when I was younger. God/Jesus in his second coming is going to take his people, the good Christian, to heaven and leave the rest on earth for, I guess, destruction. Even when I was out in the world, something about it did not sound right, but I cannot tell you why. The scripture always used was two people could be doing the same thing, and one was taken and the other left. The first thing we have to deal with is the whole going to heaven is the doctrine of Viking Valhalla. And you can research Valhalla, go Google it. This is the belief that the spirit ascends to heaven after death. All right. Now, this is also why you find a lot of belief in cremation in Gentiles, and they've given it unto us. Because you have to understand what happens when something is set on fire. You realize the embers float up, right? So you see these things floating up. So you set the body on fire, and as this parts and particles start floating, that gives them, they're descending off into heaven right now. So then you got a whole lot of the word says, from the dust you came, to the dust you shall return. Now you have all of our people all of a sudden believing in cremation. Where is it coming from? It's Valhalla. They would set the body on a raft, set the body on fire, push it out into the water. Watch it burn. Watch the embers and all of this float off. There's just smoke and particles from a fire, but to them, that's the spirit going to heaven. So understand what you're dealing with. The Christians then took our word, placed their Valhalla rising into our culture, and now our people have grabbed onto it like before they're going north. Now we ride. Now we'll fight you before harder than they will about a culture that wasn't even ours. Okay? So let's go to Matthew chapter 24.
You know, while we go in there, I got one question. Can somebody show me that word in the book?
Yeah. No, they're not going to be able to
show me the word rapture in the book.
It's funny that there's a doctrine where there's no name of the doctrine. So you got rapture doctrine, but you can't find rapture anywhere in the book. That is quite interesting. You know, it's like, how do you have a doctrine from a word that doesn't exist? Where did the doctrine come from if you can't find a word in there? There's nothing even close to that word there. So yeah, that is quite interesting. But what's also interesting is the way we perceive one taken and the other one left. Mm-hmm. That is also a very interesting concept, because who is to say which is the right way? What made us think that the one that was taken was the good one? What gave us that thought process?
Because somebody's still left on earth, so we think that's a bad.
That must be the bad one. When earth was our paradise that we were given. Heaven, you're talking about a war. You got angels fighting wars in heaven. What you gonna do? You can't even fight amongst people on earth in the middle of a war. What you gonna do when you get caught in the middle of a war in heaven? So let's deal with that. Matthew chapter 24, and we're gonna start at verse 41.
2 women should be grinding at the mill, the one shall be taken and the other left.
Right, so we just figure, okay, this, you know, which one is the bad one here? All right, go ahead.
Watch therefore, for you know not what hour your master does come, or the Adonai does come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be you also ready, for in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man comes. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his master has made ruler over his household, to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant, whom his master when he comes shall find so doing. Verily I say unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. But and if that evil servant shall say in his heart, my master delays his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken, the master of that servant shall come in a day when he looks not for him, and in an hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. For there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Now, so then when we look at this, then we have to consider something. When we're going to see this weeping and gnashing of teeth, at what point does this situation happen? When we're dealing with this separation. So which one provides this this point where this takes place? And we always assume that this is this particular one that's left is the bad one. So let's go to Matthew 25 and let's go start at verse 24. Now, and we also had a question here about talent. So I want to deal with that as we go into this. Matthew 25, and let's start that at verse 24.
Then he which had received 1 talent came and said, Adonai, I know that you are an hard man, reaping where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not strawed. And I was afraid, and went and hid your talent in the earth. Lo, there you have what is yours.
Now these are servants, and the servants are being separated by whether or not they were fruitful or unfruitful. Okay, go ahead.
His master answered and said unto him, You wicked and slothful servant, you know that I reap where I sowed not, and gathered where I have not strawed. You ought therefore to have put my money to the exchangers, and when at my coming I should have received mine own with interest. Take therefore the talent from him, and give it unto him which has 10 talents. For unto everyone that has shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that has not shall be taken away even that which he has. And cast you the unprofitable servant into outer darkness.
So who moves?
The unprofitable servant. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
The good servants don't go anywhere. Who's moving? See, we keep reading something and then we take this thing because that's what people give us, that this is the good thing. Earth was created to be inhabited. Wait a minute. Who's moving? That's something that we have to consider. Okay? That there's going to be a separation. Keep reading.
When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divides his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left.
So there's a separation between the good and the evil. So understand what's happening right there when it says one was grinding at the mill, one was taken, the other one was not. He's coming to set up a sabbatical kingdom, a kingdom of peace on earth. So then who's moving? The people who ain't going to be a part of it. We turn around and uplift the ones who getting set aside to get thrown in the fire. And then we like, well, I want to go where they're going. No, the hell you don't. You don't want to go where they're going? Go ahead.
Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was an hungered, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came unto me. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Adonai, when saw we you a hungered, and fed you, or thirsty, and gave you drink? When saw we you a stranger, and took you in, or naked, and clothed you? Or when saw we you sick, or in prison, and came unto you? And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, you've done it unto me.
All right, that's as far as I want to go. All right, there's another question that says, if a child is brought up in the word from birth, does Elohim still want them to get baptized when they become adults? Now, what I have to do is, first of all, you have to understand what baptism is. Baptism is being born again, and you have to understand what the power of that is. All right, you got to take your Christian upbringing out of that, and it creeps back up into all of us. So you have to fight that when it comes in, because they'll baptize children, they'll do all of these things. But you believe, you say, hey, if I brought this child up from birth in the word, do they still have to get a baptism? Wait, ask yourself, do you believe because of the child is being brought up in the word that they haven't sinned? Just stay right there for a second. Do you believe that because they were raised in the word that they have not sinned? Understand what baptism is and what it does. All right? Baptism is being born again with the remission of sins plus the opportunity to have the Spirit. So, next question. Do you believe that because the child was brought up in the word that they have the Spirit? We got too many questions here. We got too many questions. Too many questions. So you need to rattle that around first. Go ahead, bro.
Yeshua was brought up in the word. He was the word. Yohanan said, here's a man in which is no guile, but yet he had a baptism.
And that, as one of the questions, was about that as well. That very thing. I'm going to have to find that one. But you have, go ahead.
So the next question is your child that was brought up in the word holier than the Messiah?
Because he sure had to get a baptism, right?
Yeah.
So then you have to consider that. Was not our fathers brought up in the word?
Mm-hmm.
When they knew more about the word than we do. Did they sin? So then you have to, sometimes my elder used to say, you have to slow down sometimes and read the word slowly and let it sink in and consider some things, Consider the power of something. And because you got whole groups who don't believe in baptism. That's why I say be very careful. All these people you see marching in the middle of the street and they got all their costumes on, and I call them costumes because that's what they are, they costumes. They got costumes and they marching, they yelling out orders, and they looking all uniform and everything. A lot of those people, well, all of those people have not gotten baptized. So when you start dealing with certain things, you have to wonder, have you been influenced by another doctrine? And it's very easy to do because when you search on Hebrew Israelite teaching, you're going to run into some of these other people about 20 times before you run into one of ours. Consider that. Go ahead.
I'm thinking out the box here with this question. They said a child, right? Does a child have to be baptized? Are we talking about somebody under the age of 20? Because you mentioned throw away the Christian thing. I hope you don't got the Christian thing in your head about the christening.
Well, they did say it when they were grown.
Okay.
All right. That was in the question. I don't know if I read that part.
Not 18. When you get 20.
Right. Then that constitutes that. All right. Next question: is wickedness a mental illness? Not to say that everyone who has a mental illness is wicked. But I have come to believe that wickedness is or can induce mental illness. Do you have any thoughts about this? Let's go to Matthew chapter 4. Matthew chapter 4, and let's start at verse 23.
And Yahshua went about, you said 24, chapter 4.
Chapter 4, and then verse 23.
And Yahshua went about all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, and preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing all manner of sickness and all manner of disease among the people.
All right, so all manner of sickness and all manner of dis-ease. Mm-hmm. We like to put that together, disease. Dis-ease. Mm-hmm. Okay, go ahead.
And his fame went throughout all Syria. And they brought unto him all sick people that were taken with divers disease and torments, and those which were possessed with devils.
So they're in the same group of dis-ease. Go ahead.
And those which were lunatic, and those that had the palsy, and he healed them.
All right, now let's go to Mark chapter 9. Mark chapter 9, and let's start that at verse 17.
And one of the multitude answered and said, Master, I brought unto you my son, which has a dumb spirit. And wheresoever he takes him, he tears him, and he foams and gnashes with his teeth, and pines away. And I spake to your disciples that they should cast him out, and they could not.
Now, this is a physical ailment, but it's a spirit. Now, a lot of times they give us medicine that helps welcome on another spirit. What do they even call the liquor store? It's called the House of Spirits. Do you ever notice that you think and operate a certain way depending on which spirit or which liquor you take on? There's certain beverages. That's why I say, folks like to mix beverages. And sometimes, you get that legion in there. Because you got several different spirits going on. They're like, I'm going to drink this, and I'm going to drink this, and I'm going to drink this. For the end of the night, they don't know who the hell they are. What happened? You done mixed too many spirits. You drink one thing, you find one person, they love everybody. You know what? I love the catch. Another person want to fight everybody in the room. You have to learn that spirit ain't for you. You have to learn that. So then you have to deal with this thing. We would just see a physical ailment, but not see the underlying cause behind some of it. And they will prescribe things for us that will constantly keep us open for demonic presence. Go ahead.
He answers him and says, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him unto me. And they brought him unto him. And when he saw him, straightway the spirit tear him, and he fell on the ground and wallowed foaming. And he asked his father, How long is it ago since this came onto him? And he said, Of a child.
Of a child. He has had this issue. Go ahead.
And oftentimes it has cast him into the fire and into the waters to destroy him. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us. Yahshua said unto him, If you can believe, all things are possible to him that believes. And straightway the father of the child cried out and said with tears, Adonai, I believe. Help you mine unbelief. When Yahshua saw that the people came running together, he rebuked the foul spirit, saying unto him, You dumb and deaf spirit, I charge you, come out of him, and enter no more into him.
Right, and I always tell people this is the most powerful part of what Yahshua said. Not just come out, but don't come back. See, a lot of times we'll put somebody out, but we won't tell them don't come back. The words are important here. The words hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back. No more, no more, no more, no more. You understand? Go ahead.
And the spirit cried, and rent him sore, and came out of him, and he was as one dead, insomuch many said, He is dead. But Yahshua took him by the hand, and lifted him up, and he arose. And when he was come into the house, his disciples asked him privately, Why could not we cast him out? And he said unto them, This kind can come forth by nothing but by prayer and fasting.
So then you have to consider, even dealing with a demonic spirit and a deep dis-ease, there's some things that this is the only way that it's going to come out. The disciples, even though they had this power that Yahshua has placed upon them, they didn't have the power to remove certain things. So let us consider that, but it most definitely can be a spirit. We got too many things to go over here, so I'm gonna cover some of those as we go through our next couple of sermons. We have, of course, our Sabbath sermon, and then we're going to have our feast night, first day night, Sunday night. So between those, we will get to the rest of the questions. I want to see if it's maybe a shorter one. Somebody says, don't forget about me. I still would love to collaborate on a song with you. Let's put something together. I have plenty of beats. And I can mix your vocals too. I should have put the name right by here. I'm still working on it, man. I'm coming back, but I ain't ready yet. So yeah, let's pause right there, and so that we can let whoever's ever gonna eat and do some things. We can go ahead and enjoy the rest of your night, and we'll get to the rest of these questions because I got a few more that will probably take a little time. So that's all that we're gonna do for tonight. Shalom.
Shalom.